everyone, and welcome back to the Everyday English Bite. I am your host, and sitting across from me is our excellent guest reader. Welcome back to the studio.
Hi, thank you. I am always happy to be here.
In our last episode, we talked about NATO, the massive military alliance created by Western countries. But in global politics, every action has a reaction. Today, we are looking at the other side of the story.
Right, because the Soviet Union wasn't just going to sit back and watch NATO grow.
Exactly. Today, we are exploring the Soviet counterpart to NATO, known as the Warsaw Pact, and what happened after the Soviet Union collapsed. We will also look at the modern alliance led by Russia today, called the CSTO.
This is a fascinating piece of modern history. I have the article ready to go.
Perfect. But before we jump into the history books, let's prepare with today's key vocabulary. Pay close attention to these three terms, as they are crucial for understanding global alliances. Number 1, counterpart. A counterpart is a person or thing that holds the same position or function as someone or something else in a different place or situation. For example, the Warsaw Pact was the direct counterpart to NATO. Could you share the examples?
Sure thing. Example 1. The American president met with his French counterpart to discuss trade. Example 2. In the company's London office, her counterpart is the director of marketing.
Perfect. Number 2, dissolution. This is the formal ending of an official organization, agreement, or even a country. It is when something officially breaks apart and ceases to exist.
Got it. Here are the examples. Example 1. The dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 changed the map of the world. Example 2. After a long legal battle, the business partners finally agreed to the dissolution of their company.
And finally, number 3, sphere of influence. In international politics, this refers to an area or region over which a powerful country has significant cultural, economic, military, or political control, even if it doesn't officially own that land.
A very important concept for the Cold War. Example 1. During the Cold War, Eastern Europe was firmly inside the Soviet Union's sphere of influence. Example 2. The two superpowers competed to expand their sphere of influence in the Middle East.
Great examples. All right, let's look at the other side of the Iron Curtain. Whenever you are ready, please read today's article for us.
That it. In 1949, Western nations formed NATO to protect themselves from Soviet expansion. For several years, the Soviet Union observed this growing alliance with suspicion. The turning point came in 1955 when West Germany was officially allowed to join NATO and rebuild its military. Viewing this as a direct threat, the Soviet Union quickly reacted. In May 1955, the Soviet Union and 7 of its satellite states in Eastern Europe, Albania, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, and East Germany, signed the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance. Because it was signed in the capital of Poland, it became famous as the Warsaw Pact. On paper, the Warsaw Pact looked exactly like NATO. It claimed to be a defensive alliance based on mutual cooperation. However, the reality was very different. While NATO was an alliance of independent democratic nations, the Warsaw Pact was heavily controlled by Moscow. The Soviet Union used the Warsaw Pact not just to defend against the West, but to maintain its strict sphere of influence over Eastern Europe. In fact, the only times the Warsaw Pact military forces were ever used in combat was to invade their own member states. When democratic uprisings occurred in Hungary in 1956 and in Czechoslovakia in 1968, Soviet-led Warsaw Pact tanks rolled in to crush the rebellions and keep the communist governments in power. The Warsaw Pact stood as the great rival to NATO for exactly 36 years. However, in the late 1980s, the Soviet economy began to fail, and democratic revolutions swept across Eastern Europe. As the Berlin Wall fell and communist governments collapsed one by one, the alliance lost its purpose. On July 1, 1991, the Warsaw Pact was officially dissolved. A few months later, the Soviet Union itself collapsed. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Russia still wanted to maintain security and influence in its region. In 1992, Russia and several newly independent countries signed a new collective security treaty. By 2002, this evolved into a formal military alliance known as the Collective Security Treaty Organization, or CSTO. Today, the CSTO includes 6 member states: Russia, Belarus, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Much like NATO's Article 5, the CSTO has Article 4, which states that an act of aggression against one member is an attack against all. While it's much smaller than the Warsaw Pact and faces internal challenges, the CSTO remains Russia's primary military alliance and its main tool for maintaining a security sphere of influence in the post-Soviet world.
Thank you so much for reading that. It is really interesting how the Warsaw Pact was actually used to control its own members rather than fight outside enemies.
Yeah, that was a surprising detail. It was completely different from how NATO operates.
Exactly. Well, let's wrap things up with 3 common English idioms related to control, alliances, and collapse. Number 1, fall apart. When something falls apart, it breaks into pieces or fails completely. We use this for physical objects, but also for relationships, alliances, or organizations. The Warsaw Pact completely fell apart in 1991. Examples, please.
Sure. Example 1. Their marriage started to fall apart after they constantly argued about money. Example 2. The business deal fell apart at the last minute because they couldn't agree on a price.
Excellent. Number 2, pull the strings. Imagine a puppet show. The person holding the strings controls everything the puppet does. In politics or business, the person who pulls the strings is the one who has the real hidden power and makes the decisions, even if someone else is the public face. In the Warsaw Pact, Moscow pulled the strings.
Sure. Example 1. The mayor is the public face of the city, but everyone knows the wealthy businessman pulled the strings. Example 2. I want to speak to the manager, or whoever is actually pulling the strings in this department.
Very useful expression. Finally, number 3, a house of cards. If you build a small house out of playing cards, it looks nice, but even a tiny breeze will make the whole thing collapse. We use this to describe a plan, an organization, or an economy that looks strong, but is actually very fragile and ready to fail.
Example 1. The company's financial success was just a house of cards built on fake accounting. Example 2. When the leader resigned, the political party collapsed like a house of cards.
Fantastic examples. And that's our bite for today, everyone. You now know why the Warsaw Pact was created, how it was used to maintain a sphere of influence, and how the CSTO operates today. A huge thank you to our guest for joining me and reading so wonderfully today.
It was my pleasure. I learned so much history today.
Review today's vocabulary and idioms, make sure your own plans are not built like a house of cards, and we will see you in the next episode. Keep learning and stay curious.